Hi, my name is Daniel Foley Carter, and in this video, I'm going to be running through a page with redirect. So under why these pages aren't indexed, I'm going to explain a little bit about this and typically what and if you need to do anything. So basically, this is a very basic non-index reason. Typically, Google doesn't index redirected URLs at the source. What I mean by that is that if a pre-existing page is redirected, it will index the target destination page. So there is some nuance to that. There can be a bit of time where Google will serve an old URL that redirects, but typically once that redirect becomes redundant, it's no longer indexable. So if we see here, for example, we can see the volume of URLs that are redirected. Now, do you remember what I said in the previous video about how Google has like an index memory? So you could delete a page today and it takes a little while for Google to realize that that page has been deleted. And then it, for the next 3 months, will basically put that URL onto not found 404. So what can happen is that over time, especially with page with redirect, what typically tends to happen is that when people have a website and they change pages and maybe they remove a bit of content and redirect the old URL to new, once people put redirects in, they tend to forget about them and move on. Now, you imagine if, you've got, I don't know, an affiliate site or a home and garden magazine or an e-commerce website with thousands of products. Over time, the volume of redirects that you have will tend to go up. Now, they don't really pose any issue. There are instances where I would deal with it, but I'm going to explain some of the scenarios. So if we look here, we have our affected page count at 521 redirects. Okay, and we can see that this has been going up. Now, in the last video, we did a crawl of bulk co. So I'm just going to bring that down in here. So typically, the number that you get of redirects is likely to vary between what Google tells you it knows and what actually exists. Let me explain why. So first of all, a redirect is typically what's called a 301 or permanent redirect, but there are 302 temporary redirects, there are 308 redirects, but fundamentally a redirect is taking a user or a user agent browser from one URL to a new URL. So if we look on our crawl, typically in Screaming Frog, when we've crawled our website, we have all of these columns, okay? And you'll see what's called status code. So we can either click on it to sort it. So 200 is one of the lowest status codes. So if we then click on that, which I just did, you can see we have a mix of things in here. So we have 404s, we have 301s. But if you look, we have approximately 15 redirects. So these 15 redirects are called active redirects. So what I'm going to do is draw and explain each part to it, so you get the full fundamental picture. So first of all, if we have our website and we have our web pages, okay. Now let's say I'm just getting the Google logo. So we have Google, and then our user, whatever. So on our website, one day we might have, I don't know, homepage. Then we might have, I don't know, a cheap shoes page, cheap coats page. And, we decide we're going to delete this page. Okay, let me use a more befitting color. So we're going to get rid of I can never see the pointer. So there are two ways of dealing with it. You can delete the page, and if you do nothing, I don't know why it's so hard to see the pointer. If you do nothing, it will become a 404. So basically, it's not found. Or you can redirect it. So you might redirect it to, I don't know, another shoes page, or you might just redirect it to the homepage, so that if a user were to come across it or a search engine was to come across it, they would know that that page no longer exists and it goes to the homepage. Okay. Now, what happens is that on a website, there are two main things that will make a difference here. So first of all, there's three main things. So first of all, you can have a sitemap, okay, which lists all of the URLs. And if that sitemap hasn't been updated, it could still continue to reference the old page. You have internal links. And then you have external links, so other websites linking. Okay, so these three things matter. So what happens is that Googlebot comes along, because at some point the cheap shoes page was there. The webmaster, website owner, whoever has deleted this page, and depending on whether or not they 301 or 404, that doesn't matter, because even if this page is gone, the sitemap could still be linking to it. You might have a blog, and in one of your blogs from December 2022, you might have a piece of content that links to this cheap shoes page that no longer exists. And you might have other people that were on a forum, or they were on Reddit or somewhere else, and they've said you're the best place to buy cheap shoes from, so they've put a link. So what happens is that Google comes along, and wherever there are references to your old cheap shoes page, it's going to keep coming back, because it will crawl and see the link. So what happens is that if the page remains broken and nothing is done, and these things remain, and even if you fix the sitemap, if there's still like internal links from other pages, these are active links, and Google's going to keep coming back and seeing that this page is broken. So if it continuously sees that it's broken, it's going to see a 404 not found. Okay. And that ultimately will go into here. Now, let's say the webmaster, site owner, whoever is responsible and says, nope, this page is going to 301 redirect. So what happens is that if they redirect it, instead now, what Google's going to do is it's going to see whether it's in a sitemap or an internal link. It's going to go to this URL, and then it's going to get told that, hey, this page has moved, go here instead. Okay. That is called an active redirect. So how do we define an active redirect? Well, an active redirect, so if I can go back and clean up. An active redirect is when, let me clean all of this up. Sorry, it's a little bit messy. Okay, so let's do solid fill and get rid of that. An active redirect is where you say, where the webmaster says, right, I'm going to 301 redirect to the home page. And that's good because Google and users don't end up on a page that no longer exists. If this redirect is put in place, but nothing is done about these, no matter what happens, as Google is crawling the web and crawling your site, it's going to see, it might see some external links to this page. It might see some internal links to this page. So Google is going to continuously find the link elsewhere to the cheap shoes page. It's going to get to the cheap shoes page, see it's not there, and be redirected. Okay. It's called an active redirect when we can see other pages linking to it. So what I mean by that is, let's say our blog is linking to it. Okay, so let's say, you know, we've updated the sitemap and taken the cheap shoes out, so that's no longer an issue. And external links, we don't need to worry about that for now. But this internal one, there are pages in our website still linking to it. So an active redirect is a redirect that exists when you crawl. So if you see here, as we've crawled the website, Screaming Frog has found a link to a page that doesn't exist anymore, and it's redirected through. So if we take a look, these all look like they belong to product categories. Let's pick this household surface cleaners page. So this page here, when I go to it, is going to redirect me somewhere else. To some spam site, so it would appear. So that definitely needs addressing. Interesting. So if we find, when we do a crawl, that there are redirects, these are active redirects. Okay, because they are found on the crawl. And the way that we find where these are, we can just select them in Screaming Frog, and then we can go down to this internal links tab, and it will show us what is linking to these pages that redirect. So basically, in here on the home page, there is a link to this page, and this page no longer exists and is redirecting somewhere else. So that's an active redirect. Now, what can happen is that, let's say we fix all of these issues. Okay, so there's no links anywhere to our page that no longer exists. What's going to happen is that Google is going to have a memory of this URL. But what will happen is that even if the URL is no longer linked to from anywhere, it's still going to be known to Google, and Google's still going to say, well, even though this page doesn't exist, I know that it did exist and that it redirects. So what happens is, you imagine over 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24, 36, over months to years, all these URLs that Google knew about persist because the redirect still exists. So even though there's nothing linking to it anymore, the redirect still exists. And this is why, when you go to, were we looking at this on Boltco? Yeah. This is why the volume of redirects reported can be much higher than the redirects that actually exist. And that's because redirects are usually what's called server-side rules. So if you're using WordPress or you're using Shopify and you're using a plugin or something that addresses redirects, even if you clean everything up, the server still has the instruction, if someone hits this URL, redirect. Now, because Google already knows that the URL existed, it's going to keep it under page with redirect. Okay. So even if none of these appear in my site crawl, but they appear in here, is because at some point Google's come along and it's found the URL, it's redirected, and even if the URL is gone, there's still a redirection. So one of the things that we can actually do is we can export this data. And we can take some of the URLs. So we can copy a handful of them. Now, bear in mind, because this is basic training, there are ways, there are scripts that we can run that will basically allow us to get all of the statuses of these URLs within. But for now, we're going to keep it really simple. So if we just go to http://status.io, or any tool that will allow you to bulk check URLs, and you click check status. And it can take a minute. So here you go. So you can see that all of these URLs, the redirect persists. So even though the URL has gone from the site, there's no other references to it, Google remembers the URL. Okay. Now, there are some key considerations here. Number one, this data isn't always 100% accurate. What I mean by that is that Google can mark URLs as page with redirect that might have redirect previously but don't now. So I always suggest checking everything. The other thing as well is when we export the URLs, sometimes it's good to look at how many of those URLs are parameter driven. So what we can do is we can click data, create a filter. And then if we look, we've got question marks. So we can click filter by condition, text contains. And we have to do that little curvy line thing. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the character is called, but you have to pull it. And this will basically show us that there's loads of parameter driven URLs. Okay. And then what we can also do is we can have a look at the static URLs. So do you remember in previous videos, I've highlighted that one URL can have like loads of query strings appended to it. So it's the same page effectively, but the query string can change an attribute of that page. So sometimes it's good to have a look at the raw URLs to see what they are. So I can see, for example, that there are loads of products in here. So if I take one of these products and I go to my Screaming Frog crawl, okay, so that crawl is finished. If I then paste it in here and hit enter, oh, so there is a link and it's saying it's, so if you look, so this is interesting. So if you look, this URL is here, but it has a trailing slash, and here it does not. So sometimes what can happen is basic changes can all of a sudden create loads of redirects. So for example, you might have a website where all of your URLs are non-trailing slash, and you might change CMS or you might change something, and then all of a sudden, all of those URLs could be with trailing slash. So if you've got 5,000 products, you're going to end up with thousands of redirects because, if you change your URL structure, that can have a wider overarching effect. So typically the way that I would deal with this is that in most cases, page with redirect is not really so much of an issue. But what I would say is that it's best practice to do the following things. So the first one is that if you have a website and it has, broken pages, it has internal redirects, find where these URLs are and update them. So for example, on the homepage, apparently there is a link to Premix Spirits. So let's check that. So we go on here and we're looking for Premix Spirits. So we go on the page and we view the page source. We find the URL, Premix Spirits. So we can see that it's in the navigation. So there's a link to Premix Spirits. And if we check the status code of that, let's copy the URL again. So we can see, and this is an example of where sometimes the things that Google list are not actually current redirects. So, you do have to be careful here. Let's see if there's another one. Yeah, so this is where that spam is. But we can see that there's a redirect. So fundamentally, let's say that Premix Spirits URL was actually a redirect. You can see we would then go in and update this URL to the new destination where that redirect URL goes if it's relevant. Typically, the only time as well that you would keep pages that redirect are if they are based on a rule, i.e., let's say we have https www. We're going to have a server level rule that basically says if someone goes to https bulk.co without the www, any URL that's entered will redirect to the www version. So that's like a server wide rule, redirect rule. Also, if it's to do with things like URL consistency, like trailing slash and non-trailing slash. But also if these links, if any of these URLs are preserving something called link equity. So do you remember when I was drawing this? Okay. And you remember I was saying about external links. So links and link building are very important for SEO. And what can happen is that external websites might find certain things on your website really good. So we might have a website that was like, go here to buy your cheap shoes. This is the best place to buy cheap shoes. So this external website links to your cheap shoes page. Now, if that page is gone, what we want is we want the link equity, which is like link value, as it were, to go from this external site to ours. But if it's a dead end and there's no redirect, that's not ideal. So what we want to make sure is that are the redirects actually preserving anything? So one of the things that you can do is you can take your URLs, you can go to a tool called Ahrefs, and you can sign in, sign up, sign in. And you can click on more, batch analysis. Now, remember, wherever you are in your SEO journey, you don't have to understand everything now. What this is that I'm teaching some fundamentals, but may be a case that as you go through, you will then be able to come back and better understand. But what we're basically doing is we're seeing how many other sites link to pages that are no longer on the domain. And if you see here, the thing that we care about is this and this. So if we click this, we can see that some of these redirects have external links. Okay, so obviously, depending on the URL type, you would leave these redirects alone because they have external links pointing to them. So the redirect can be left indefinitely. But if we've got like loads of redirects and they're not structural redirects, i.e. HTTP to HTTPS, www dot to non-dub or other way around, or trailing slash to non-trailing slash, if they aren't in that class, and they don't have any external links and they don't pass any traffic, then you could ask your developer, or you could remove that redirect rule, and you would find that the volume of affected pages goes down. So that's the main part of this page with redirect video. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to reach out. Our website is Assertive UK. That's ASSERTIVE UK.com. You can also visit SEO-audits.io or our Google Search Console replacement tool, www.seo-stack.io. Thank you for watching. Any questions, please feel free to reach out.